So here we are, the first proper week, January the 6th. Richard Tice, very good morning to you.
Very good morning. It's a little bit murky and sort of gloomy out there, but we have to be optimistic going into the new year, as you say. Well, the new year of common sense.
Reform can't seem to get off the front pages.
Well, that's right. I mean, and it sort of started literally on Christmas Day, on Boxing Day.
Yes.
When the leader of His Majesty's opposition decided to take us on and accuse us of being lying and fraudulent about our membership numbers.
Wasn't she asked to apologise?
We got a number of different media channels and journalists in to check the actual database, the back end, proved that we were right, she was completely wrong, and just said, look, we all make mistakes, just apologise, Kemi. She's refused to do that, so Nigel announced over the weekend that we're going to make our own constituency seat a key target at the next general election, just to give Kemi a little bit of something to think about.
And also, because of her actions on Boxing Day, she managed to gain herself the first Plank of the Week nomination and victory. So she's now the first Plank of the Week of the year is Kemi Badenoch.
Well, and she did us a favour, is the truth, because actually, I mean, look at our membership numbers. We went through their number of, give or take, 130-odd thousand, and now we're up at 170,000 plus and still rising. So we think actually she personally was responsible for adding tens of thousands of members who are outraged by
and just
her
when
suggestion.
Things were settling down a bit, Elon Musk suddenly decided to start attacking, and with great success, by the way, the whole grooming gangs issue. And I think he did the right thing there, put Keir Starmer very much on the back foot. Starmer's now come out and said, oh, well, now what we're going to do is we're going to enact the J report, all of the things that were recommended in that 2 years ago, we're suddenly now going to action them. I don't know why suddenly now he wants to action them, but we're going to expect to hear something from him today on that.
I mean, you know, this grooming, this child rape scandal, you know, I've been describing it as one of the most horrific scandals to afflict the UK in the last 2 or 3 decades.
The more you read about it, it's just incredible.
What's extraordinary is that it sort of hits the news and then disappears. But over 2 decades, I mean, it's as bad or worse than the infected blood scandal and also the post office scandal. And look, I just don't see any rationale for not having a national public inquiry. And those who say, well, we've got lots of local inquiries and there's already been
we've already had one.
We've already had... The truth is, when you actually dig into the detail, and the devil's in the detail, this national inquiry, actually, it only looked at 6 towns. We think there are some 50 towns that have been involved. And of those 6 towns, none of them were the towns about which we've already heard about. The Telfords, the Oldhams, the Rochdales, the Rotherhams of this world. So actually, the existing inquiry, frankly, was very limited and doesn't go anywhere near far enough. And what Mr. Musk and others, and we've been saying, and we're calling for a public inquiry, is that we're concerned about who knew what when, who genuinely covered something up and didn't. And I think it's pretty extraordinary. And I can reveal exclusively on this show, having talked about this yesterday morning, I was contacted yesterday evening by email by a councillor who shall currently remain nameless from Oldham, slightly warning me off, saying, nothing to see here, don't worry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I'm digging into it, and I shall be making inquiries, but I'm thinking, hang on, so I'm just sort of making a general request for a public inquiry, and all of a sudden I'm getting an email from an Oldham councillor that says, nothing to see here, Mr. Tice, go away.
And now that we know what Simon Danchuk's been saying about him being warned off specifically by Labour, leaders in Rochdale, we also know from Lucy Allen that she was not only warned off by Labour politicians, but also warned off by the police, who basically said this will be bad for your career.
And also, it appears, warned off by other Tory MPs. So, you know, I think we need to know why were so many people in senior positions, whether it be police forces, whether it be local councillors, whether it be in mainstream political parties, why were they basically trying to sort of prevent due process and analysis and exposure? What were they covering up? Their own incompetence or what?
Yes.
I think we've got to know.
I think so, and an awful lot more is now known about what happened after that particular report 2 years ago was published. So that report, in a way, is out of date anyway. But let's talk about Nigel Farage now as well, because, of course, he was on Laura Kuenssberg yesterday, and he was being asked about his relationship with Elon Musk. He was being asked about some of the things that Elon Musk had been saying. And let's have a look at what he told Laura Kuenssberg yesterday.
And is his friend, Elon Musk, now your friend, and is he going to give you millions of pounds?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Now, forget about the $100 million being talked about in the newspapers.
Is he going to give you money?
That is for the birds.
Is he going to give you money?
He may well do. He may well do. But it's got to be legal. He's got to be comfortable with it. He may well give us money. Whether he does or not, I'll tell you what he gives us. With huge numbers of young people, he makes us look cool.
Is the reason you hope he's going to give you money, is that why you don't want to criticise him?
I think I've made it perfectly clear that I don't agree with everything he stands for, but I do believe in free speech. I think he's a hero, and I said that well before any potential money was offered.
And of course, Laura Kuenssberg more upset about the things that Elon Musk is actually saying and the words that he's using than she is about what actually happened during the grooming scandal times, you know, and what was actually
And this is the point.
people.
It seems to me that lefty journalists, they're more worried about a little bit of hurty words, offensive language, or diddums. You know, actually, if you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. It can be a pretty tough old world out there.
Yeah.
But what we want is action, and I think that's what voters want. They want things to be sorted out, managed properly. They don't want things to be covered up, like
and
on this child rape scandal.
And kicked into the long grass. Yeah.
They want it sorted. That's why when I've been calling for a public inquiry, I say, let's have a prompt, rapid inquiry that covers everything. And, you know, you heard from Nigel there, look, and that's the joy. I mean, wouldn't life be boring if we all always agreed with each other?
Yeah.
And you can be friends with someone, but you can disagree with them.
Well, you can be. And he said later on in the interview, he said, well, I'm going to be going to the inauguration on the 20th of January, and I'll be having a conversation with Elon Musk and about a great many things, which will probably, presumably include the fact that, you know, endorsing Tommy Robinson and asking for him to be released from prison is probably not what we would want you to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like Nigel, I'm a big Musk fan. You know, I use his products. I think they're amazing. And he's got serious investments in the UK. So he's every right to be interested in the growth of the UK economy, how it performs, and the cost of doing business here. But what Nigel demonstrated in his reply to Mr Musk's tweet yesterday, I think in the afternoon...
Well, because that was the other thing. For those people who have been under a rock for the last 24 hours, shortly after Nigel's appearance on the BBC, Elon Musk sent a tweet out in which he said that Nigel Farage doesn't got what it takes, he needs to be replaced as leader of reform, which must have taken even Nigel Farage by surprise.
Well, the first thing you check is that, you know, it's for real.
It's actually him, yeah.
Because in the world of AI, you have to double-check anything. But look, the reality is, Nigel needs to be the next Prime Minister of this country. He has total, unequivocal support of all of us. And, you know, Mr Musk, he's entitled to his opinion. That's the joy. I mean, it says, my response was, thank God for free speech.
Yeah.
We can agree, we can, on some things, we can disagree on others. But here's the real point. What Nigel has shown and what we've shown is we are people of conviction and principle. And we are not for sale to anyone. And that is the key point. And that's why I think we're going up in the polls. That's why our membership is soaring, because people realise we've been around the block a few times. We know what makes businesses work. We know what needs to be done to make the country work. And we've got real, genuine conviction and principle. I think people like that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from the reaction we're getting this morning from our audience, many of whom would have voted reform in the last election, you know, they're saying that Nigel's done the right thing. Elon Musk is all very well, but he's not necessarily the man that should be dictating policy to anybody, whether it's Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage. But I mean, is Nigel a bit disappointed? Because, I mean, it's not what you expect to hear from a friend, particularly if it's something that comes out of the blue in public. I mean, it's not as if he called him and said, you know,
but
I
in
think
a sense,
he's screwing this up.
One should expect that from Mr Musk, because he's surprised throughout his whole career, from his very first most successful investment to what he's achieved with Tesla. Everyone said it couldn't be done. He did it. You know, everybody said it couldn't be done to make Twitter and then call it X, to make that work. He did it. Everyone said he couldn't make it work with SpaceX. He did it. So he always surprises, and so you shouldn't be surprised when he surprises you.
Right.
That's the reality.
But will Nigel be worried about what he might be saying to Donald Trump, though, perhaps?
Look, I think at the end of the day, the President-elect is a man of his own mind, and again, he surprises people, but he and Nigel have got a very strong relationship. Nigel's been incredibly loyal and worked very closely with the President-elect, and the most important thing, actually, is that hopefully that will bear fruit in terms of, with the discussions over trade deals, over tariffs. Looking forward this year, that's going to be very significant. The fact that, thankfully, we're outside the EU, so that if Mr. President Trump puts tariffs on EU goods, then hopefully through the good offices of Nigel, then the United Kingdom can avoid that. That's all to be discussed and negotiated going forwards. But Nigel's made that offer to the Labour government, saying, look, in the national interest, if you want me to help, I'm happy to.
Right. But Starmer, of course, has not gone down that road, has he? Because he's too busy reworking the NHS.
I'm in the spirit of the New Year optimism, Mike. I'm patient. I'm saying there's plenty of time yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did see Starmer running across the divide in the House of Commons, didn't we, to go and shake his hand?
We did indeed.
Just before the close of play.
And that's the point. You can disagree on most things, on many things, but where you find areas of agreement, then actually you should grab that and go for it if it's in the national interest. And you touched on health earlier. Back at the beginning of the election campaign, Wes Streeting and I agreed on the need to use much more of the independent healthcare sector. And I said so at the time, I actually think he was copying our policy. And so there are small areas where you say, this is the right way to do it. It's cross-party or no party. Get on with it.
And what about the situation with the money? Because in the morning yesterday, certainly, before Musk's tweet that he thought that Nigel wasn't up to it, Nigel said he probably will give us some money. He probably will give you some money. It might not be... And I was reading, I think, over the weekend that there's been a new company formed over the course of the last week or two.
The honest answer is...
In the headquarters of X in London, some kind of new AI company has been set up, which could be a vehicle for donating
Well, the
money.
great thing is we've got tens of thousands of members joining every month, so very generously money comes in through memberships. I've still got 20 quid or so in the back pocket, so we'll be all right. Don't worry about that.
Good to know that you're not scrimping and saving in the early days of the new year.
Look, if people want to donate and are legally able to donate, and they've got business interests here, then that's great. But fundamentally, we want people to help us and support us who agree with our values, agree with our principles. But we're not selling out to anybody. We stick with it. We go for it. We know what needs to be done to save this country and to make it grow again.
So if Musk does have some money for you, you're not going to turn it down?
I think obviously that would be for discussion in the future. But at the end of the day, there's no strings attached to anything. We know what needs to be done, and we're saying to the British people, give us the opportunity to do it. The first opportunity will be council elections this May, although many fewer than was previously anticipated, because it looks like many councils are going to be essentially postponing their elections.
Right. It's funny that, isn't it?
Funny that. Maybe they're worried about our growth and success, do you think?
It seems rather anti-democratic, doesn't it, to suddenly say we've decided to reorganise all of these local boroughs and local councils and district councils.
Well, what's interesting, it seems that the decision to do that in most of these counties is actually a Conservative-led council decision. So you're thinking, what are they running scared of?
Right. Well, one can only imagine. Meanwhile, today there's a debate in Parliament, I think it's in Westminster Hall, about whether or not we should have another election. This is obviously triggered by the 3 million petition that went in towards the end of... are you going to be involved in that?
So certainly Reform members will. We're going to be trying to sort of split ourselves because we want some people there, but also there may well be things to discuss, urgent questions that we need to try and get involved with in the main chamber itself. I've got a topical question on defence. So, yes, we will be spreading ourselves across all of the debates to make sure we're represented.
Yeah, and also, of course, as I say, with the story this morning on the front page of the Telegraph couldn't be more timely as well, which is all about the numbers of people involved in sex offences in this country. Foreign nationals more than 3 times as likely to be arrested for sexual offences as British citizens. We've seen more, I think the first lot of illegal migrants arriving yesterday over the course of the first ones this year, 61 already. What's going on with that?
Well, I think it's really important, and we've been calling, Rupert Lowe's been leading the way, calling for more transparent data. Good government is about transparent government, and we need to know this stuff. And so I think the Centre for Migration Watch, I think it was, that dug out these figures through FRI requests, and they're truly shocking. And in a sense... people feel, well, why weren't we told this? Why have you been hiding it? Oh, why that's the reason, because it's embarrassing.
Yes.
And we need to know, I think, all of this information. Who's been, which nationalities have the greatest likelihood of being arrested relative to the numbers in the country? And then you can sort of make informed decisions on the back of it and say, well, actually, maybe you don't share our values and our sort of way of doing things. So we need this data, and we need it on a regular, transparent basis, as other European nations, the likes of Denmark, I think, and I think Sweden may be going down this route, are providing. You know, we absolutely need to know, because we're very concerned about the increasing crime levels. You know, I mean, you're sort of daily hearing and seeing sort of machete attacks through high streets in various towns and cities. You think, this didn't happen 20 years ago.
No.
What's happened in between? Oh, I remember, mass uncontrolled immigration that no one asked for.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a link, maybe there's not. Let's have the data and then we can draw our own conclusions.
Indeed. Very good to talk to you, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. Let's finish with a voice note from Paula, who wants to say something about grooming gangs.
Hi, Mike. Happy New Year. Missed you this last week. Quite often amazed at how often the stories that are running on your show and talk radio in general are just not featured on the main traditional news channels like BBC and ITV. But it was absolutely incensed this weekend to see that Channel 4 are about to rerun an old programme called The Fake Grooming Scandal. Now, what on earth is that all about? Given what's in the news at the moment, it's just an attempt to undermine the narrative, as usual, and to make people disbelieve things.
Well, Channel 4, of course, who also claimed over the weekend that Musk was losing following on Twitter because of his rather strange political views. Channel 4, that's got about 4 viewers. You know, he's got about 650 million users per day on Twitter. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, I think generally what Channel 4 cover, and I mean, they are... they're so biased in their sort of left-wing approach. It is extraordinary, and we have to think very carefully about, is it a good use of one's time to go on their programmes? It is extraordinary.
Probably not, and probably not a very good use of public money either. Might as well trash the whole thing and just redo reruns of Big Brother. I think that's what we'd be better at. 21 minutes past 8. Richard Tice, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.